a lot, now you know I'm coming through. When the growth look good on you, best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep feeling it.
What is going on, my people? What is going on? It's G. You already know what time it is. You already know what it is. Guys, we're here back in the building. Please, 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 as always, if you can hit that like button once you click this video, and if you can subscribe to the channel if you are brand new. So let's dive into it. Today, taking a little look. Obviously, we're into the summer effectively. Window's not open just yet, but we're into the summer. We're into the summer, and I wanted to take a little look. I wanted to take a look at Bajcetic. Now, reason being is because obviously we're linked with so many, different midfielders, and there's so many reports, and even probably by the time this video gets posted out, there's going to be more and more midfielders that we're linked to, different types of profiles, and different players and all that kind of stuff. But obviously, one player that I think, not that we're forgetting, I wouldn't say that people are forgetting him, but one player that's kind of been pushed a little bit to the side, and a player who I think, I don't really know the role of this player, is obviously Stefan Bajcetic. So you guys already know, came in last season. Yeah, we had a breadth of injuries, players out of form and all that kind of stuff. And he came into the squad and he was like a breath of fresh air. He was genuinely like a breath of fresh air. He was that energy in the midfield that we needed. He was the engine, in that midfield, whereby people were looking at him and thinking, this guy, we need to put him into the. I saw some people talking about him being a first teamer, next season. Obviously, this is before we'd signed the likes of Alexis McAllister and, looking at all these other players. And when I was thinking about it, I was sitting there the other day and I thought to myself, where does this guy actually fit in the team? And guys, let me know in the comments. What do you see with Bajcetic in terms of his future at Liverpool? Now, I'm not talking about Liverpool looking to sell him or his contract's up or anything like that. I'm pretty sure he actually signed a new deal, fresh terms, not too long ago, professional contract. So nothing to do with that. It's just more, where do you guys see Bajcetic in terms of, is he a first teamer? Is he someone who's going to be on the bench next season? Is he a cover for which position? And I think that's where I wanted to kind of dive into it. So obviously, looking at him, played, started out Celta Vigo. Obviously, we signed him from Celta Vigo. Was then, playing as a centre back for the youth teams, under 21s, under 18s, or whatever. And not that I thought maybe that would be his position, but that was his position, ultimately for the youth team. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, he's playing centre back. Is he going to get in at centre back? I don't think so. I don't think he had the physical attributes at this current moment in time. And to be honest, I don't really feel like it could all change. Anything can happen. I've seen stranger things, but I just didn't really see him as a centre back at Liverpool. And, when he then came into the first team, then he's played DM before, for the youth sides, as well as playing centre back. But obviously he was a centre back by trade. When he's come into the first team now, he's playing central midfield, DM, left central midfield. He's filling in the gaps. And as I said, we were going through a bad run of form, players out of form, and all that kind of stuff. So, it was a little bit like, okay, you know what, we've got a bit of fresh energy in there. We can see what he can do. We saw him. We saw him during the preseason of last season, and when I saw him during the preseason, I thought, this is a tidy player. He is genuinely a tidy player, when he's on the ball. Spanish players, you know what I mean? They've got that technique, they've got that technical ability, that football IQ that, I feel like we are kind of lacking at times, in this Liverpool midfield under Jurgen Klopp. So when he kind of showed what he was about, I was like, okay, cool. And then when he started playing, in the Premier League, he was showing, I think it was probably more exuberance than anything. Whether that's just him or he's going to keep that up, I don't know, but he was showing a lot of exuberance in terms of flying into tackles, trying to put himself about, trying to show that he is obviously at this level and he can play at this level, and he's ready for the fight and he's ready for the battles that he's going to have in the midfield. Obviously, as I said, we've then moved on really and truly. It always happens. It always seems to happen with Liverpool. Every time a player's kind of like a merging, or a player's, unless they're really, really good, like a Trent kind of thing, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, he was a player that, we looked at and thought, yes, this is the answer in midfield. And then as soon as we kind of get that answer, he gets injured. And then once he gets injured, it's almost like, okay, well, we've moved on from that now. We've moved on from having you as a pivotal point in the midfield. And then we're looking at a different way, potentially, of how we utilize that midfield. And I'm not saying that that's the case with Bajcetic at all. He's young. Do you know what I mean? He's still young enough whereby I just think that, when I say we've moved on in terms of the players that we're looking at, I'm looking at him now thinking, where does he realistically go from here? Because it's like a catch-22. Obviously, you as a club are looking at it and thinking, well, we need the depth. We do need to be able to have players we can draw upon, Europa League, FA Cup, Carabao Cup, some Premier League games, players get injured. All of these players need to be rested, all of these kind of different things. So, of course, you want to have that depth, and he's not bad depth to necessarily have. But in terms of his own footballing development, obviously, I think it was a stress issue that he had, the reason why he's out for so long, or he was out for so long. So in terms of his body development, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, this is always going to be a problem under Jurgen Klopp, always going to be an issue. And I fear for players who come to the football club, because you're going to push that limit. You're going to push that limit in terms of, muscle injuries and, those stress fractures, all those kind of injuries. You're going to push that limit. Not to say you're going to get them, because we've seen Mo Salah doesn't get those kind of injuries. But you're going to push that limit, and it's going to, wear and tear on your body over a period of time. And I think with someone like Bajcetic, someone who's so young, someone who's playing a lot of football in such a short space of time as well, especially quite fresh, coming into the team, not used to playing at this level. Again, he could adapt. He might get, accustomed to that. But I am a little bit worried in that regard. And then when we look at it from the other side of things, in terms of his perspective, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, what do you do next season? It's depending on, obviously, of course, the transfer business that Liverpool get done during this window. Where do you go? Because yes, he might just be happy sitting on the bench, not playing for 10 games in a row, potentially, 5, 6, 7 games in a row, whatever. But then to come in and then do your thing, is that going to be enough in terms of in a full season? Again, I don't really know. Klopp's going to have to do quite a lot of rotation, I think, anyway, for next season. And again, that remains to be seen. But when I'm looking at him, I'm just like, it is really just a tricky one. I genuinely think it's trickier than people are making it out to be, because they're probably just looking at it, well, he's young. Yeah, he could just be a depth player, blah, blah, blah. But he might not be looking at it like that. He might genuinely look at it and think, well, you know what? I came into the squad, especially when you needed me. I showed what I could do. I've shown that I can, play at this level to a certain degree anyway, enough to at least put my name in the hat at the bare minimum, especially when you're thinking about the other players, the Fabinhos, the Thiagos, the Hendersons, either they're out form, declining, or injury prone. He's looking at it thinking, well, I'm not exactly injury prone. It was just hopefully just a one-time thing. And I've shown that, I've got the energy and I've got also a little bit of the guile that you probably need in that midfield. So that's why I'm looking at him, just thinking, first of all, what type of a midfielder is he? You know what I mean? I think that's going to be very, very key. Now, if he keeps swapping positions or changing positions, i.e. he played obviously defensive midfield in the 6th, and then obviously moved over to left central midfield. I feel like you need to kind of pick one. It's all well and good that you can play both. Of course, that's going to help in terms of getting you the game time. But that's where I feel like it ends. I feel like players do need to make sure that they have a certified position. Okay, this is my position. This is where you're going to see the best football from me to put me in this position, as opposed to, well, he can play that position. It's like James Milner. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, well, he can play left back. He can play right back. He can play central midfield. He can play, I've seen him play the false 9, at Manchester. Like, I've played so many different positions, left wing, right wing, but where can you put me whereby you're going to see the best results? Now, obviously, when we're looking at someone like a Bajcetic, here they're just talking about the type of midfielder that he is/was. Bajcetic acted as the balancing force between Liverpool's midfield offensive and defensive actions. box-to-box enforcer whose nimble frame blended with his intoxicating energy created a technically astute and commanding central midfield presence that Liverpool have desperately lacked so far this season. Obviously, the season just gone. On the evidence of this performance, I think this is a performance, I believe, might have been against Everton. Bajcetic has staked a firm claim to regularly integrated into the squad and is directly challenging Fabinho for a starting spot. Now, obviously, this was all spoken about, prior to the season ending. So this is while Liverpool was still in the midst of, we were just all over the gaff, as we already know, with Liverpool. So I was looking at it and thinking, okay, well, as I said, he's played in that kind of left central midfield position. No problem. Not a problem at all. And then obviously he's got him as the central midfielder, but obviously he was playing as more the DM in this role as opposed to playing central, midfield. So can he play in that six? Now we've moved formations. Now we're playing, a completely different formation. Well, a different formation to the one that, Jurgen Klopp likes to play, which is that obviously that 4-3-3. Obviously, he's got one DM, and then he's got his 2 8s. Which position do you guys realistically see Bajcetic in? This is obviously 26 games last season, 1 goal, 1 assist. So again, in terms of his footballing for last season, it was a kind of a good little breakout season, for him up until his injury. And I felt like probably if he didn't get, this is where I always think that these things are so weird and so coincidental more than anything. If Bajcetic didn't get injured, would Jurgen Klopp have gone with this 3-2-2-3, the box midfield formation? Who knows? Obviously, we will never know now. But would he have gone with that? And if he does go with that, where does Bajcetic kind of play? Because I've seen some people mention, that maybe he plays on the where Trent's playing. Maybe he comes in as a cover for Trent Alexander-Arnold, where it's that kind of inverted role. If he does go into that position, does it remain an inverted role, or do you just keep it as this is my 3 at the back kind of thing, and he's not the one who's going to drop in? It's going to be whoever the other midfielder is. So in this scenario, it'll be a Fabinho. At this current moment in time, that was kind of one of the things. And obviously, I put him here in terms of the 2 positions because I was like, obviously, we've seen him play, in the 6 anyway. So would I trust him in the 6 by himself moving forward at this current moment in time? No. I wouldn't. I'd prefer for him to have a partner, alongside him, whether that's a Trent, for example. So if he does play on that left DM position, then you've got Trent right on the right hand side. If he does play on that right hand side, I still would like for him to have like a partner, someone that he can kind of feed off, someone who's going to do kind of the opposite of whatever it is that he is chosen to actually do, in that position. Because if he's going to come in there and, we saw, with what I was saying, he's a box-to-box enforcer type of midfielder, no problem. Then if that's the case, we're going to need someone else there to just kind of cover him if he's going to be going on those kind of runs, someone that you might give the onus to give the ball, he can pass, he's good in tight spaces. Again, that's that Spanish school of football, so in that kind of instance, I'm like, okay, fair enough. But then if you look at it from like a 4-3-3 perspective, as I said, he's played in the left central midfield position, he's played as a DM as well. Where do you kind of see him in the new Liverpool way, for example, which is I'm assuming that it's going to be this, moving forward for next season. We've seen a couple of links as well in the last couple of days talking about Liverpool might potentially be looking at a left-sided centre-back / potential left-back, whether that might be a Mickey van den Veen or Gonzalo Inacio. I know a lot of people like Levi Colwill, me included. So where, again, and this is the question, and people, let me know in the comments, please engage. Let me know what you guys are thinking, because I'm a little bit confused as to whereabouts is his best position, moving forward. This is his heat map, obviously, for the season. Of course, most notably on that left-hand side. That's why I think if he was to come in this new 3-2-2-3 formation, I would think that he would be alongside a Trent Alexander-Arnold, for example. But then obviously that then leaves the question in terms of who comes in as cover, for Trent, because we're going to need to look at that. I feel like you need cover in most areas, if not all areas, so that if one player is out, your team then isn't having to find a whole different way of playing because just one person is out. Does Bajcetic come into that picture? Defensively, he's okay. He's not bad. defensively, I'm not going to say he's the worst, so to speak. He's good at the interceptions. You can see there that's the one highlighted. Successful take-ons, he's pretty decent. But everything else, he's a little bit not that. It's difficult, obviously, because we're in such a. We can only judge by what we've seen, and in what we've seen in Liverpool, in one of Liverpool's worst seasons in terms of performance-wise, if I'm looking at the other areas of his game, would I say he's a progressive ball carrier? Not really. I feel like he's one of those 1-2 touch kind of players. Or let me say he's someone I would prefer to be a 1-2 touch type of player. Someone give the ball, boom, we're off kind of thing. So is that better served in the left defensive midfield position? And I keep asking these kind of questions in different videos and stuff that I've done because I'm confused as to what it is Jurgen Klopp wants to do moving forward. I'm sure fans out there are also confused as to what Jurgen Klopp wants to do moving forward because we don't really know what formation do you want to play? How do you want the team to play? Is it just going to be the same, whatever formation we play as the 4-3-3? Is it just going to be the same principles and all that kind of stuff? Or is it going to be a little bit fluid? Is it going to be a little bit more technical, in the middle of the park? We've seen with other teams where they've got that technical ability in the middle of the park, that's where they get their joy. And obviously we've signed Alexis McAllister, so hopefully that's going to help with that. We've got Curtis Jones there as well. You've also got Thiago. And again, Bajcetic, I feel, is one of those kind of technical players. He can do the dirty work and stuff like that, but that's not where I feel like his best game is, if I'm being totally honest. It's a bit like Thiago. A player who, his statistics might tell you, he's probably one of Liverpool's best tacklers and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not looking at Thiago and thinking, oh yeah, that's why I've got you in the team to be a tackler. No, I've got you in the team to get on the ball, find a pass. You know what I'm saying? Keep the ball moving, keep the ball ticking, keep the play ticking, get us moving forward quickly, because you can do that. That's where you're going to see the joy and see the best from these kind of players. And that's how I kind of look at Bajcetic. Not to say that he can't do the tough tackling and all that kind of stuff, but I feel like he would break down after a period of time, if he was to continue doing so. Hence the reason why I think maybe, he could be a Trent cover, maybe the left defensive midfield, depending on what you're asking of him. But if you're asking him to play left defensive midfield and you've got Trent on the right hand side, then you're going to ask him to be a bit more defensive than anything, which again is obviously fine. But then, is it the defensive that is like like an Ugarte, for example, someone who's like a tough tackler, he's a destroyer, Kante, these guys are like destroyers, in the midfield. Not to say that they can't dribble, because I know someone's going to mention it, not to say that they can't dribble or they can't get themselves forward, but that's not the best area for them, if I'm being honest with you. That's not where you're going to see the best of these kind of players. When you get them doing that kind of defensive role, not a problem. Is that what you're asking from a Bajcetic, or are you getting him to almost do a bit like a Rodri? Now, Rodri can do the destroyer thing, but he's like a deep lying kind of, would I say playmaker? Maybe. He's what I thought Thiago would be, which is someone who can keep the ball ticking, but can still win your ball, still intercept, still make those blocks, still make those tackles and stuff like that. You still rely on him, in the defensive transitions, but he keeps the ball moving very well. And, because he's got a good pass on him, good technique, good dribbling ability, get himself out of tight spaces, all of those kind of things. That's exactly what I thought we were getting Thiago in for. So is that now going to be potentially the role of a Bajcetic? Again, in the comments, let me know what you guys are thinking in regards to that and how you see his future panning out. Is he going to get the game time next season? We already know when it comes to Klopp, he's not really someone who rotates. Is that going to change? Obviously, we've been in the Champions League and stuff like that. So maybe that might have played into Jurgen Klopp's thinking. Is that now going to change that we're in Europa League, where we're going to be playing lesser teams, on a Thursday night? So is it then best to, potentially try different things, make sure Bajcetic can always play in those kind of games. I think it's 6 group games, I believe, I think, that you play in the Europa League. If so, Bajcetic, you're in for all of those games. Is that then enough, for him moving forward? If a player does get injured and we need you for the Premier League, you're then ready. Cup games, all those kind of things. Is there going to be enough? People say there's enough games. Not necessarily. You get knocked out of everything, or you're only able to play 6 Europa League games. That's it. You might only play a third round of an FA Cup, and the FA Cup don't start till January anyway. So forget that competition for a second. You're then thinking about the Carabao Cup. What happens if you get knocked out in the third round? That's it now. till January, you're not going to be seen in a cup competition unless it's the Europa League. Is that going to be enough? I feel like with the way that Liverpool play, players need rhythm. They need the rhythm in the team. Once you see we saw it with Curtis Jones, prime example. When he got that rhythm, when he understood the assignment, when he knew that, okay, I'm not going to be dropped, obviously, unless I drop an absolute stinker, in a game which he didn't do, I'm not going to be dropped here. The manager trusts me in this position. Maybe if I continue like this, I can find myself in that first team slot at the beginning of next season. I feel like everyone in the team, we even saw with Oxlade-Chamberlain when he kept coming back from these injuries. Once he started getting a little bit of rhythm, you start seeing better performances from him. It might not have been enough potentially to keep him, but they were just better than the performances that you were seeing where you're coming on for 5 minutes here, 20 minutes there, 10 minutes here. You're playing your first 45 minutes in, God knows, 2 months, 3 months potentially, at a time. Players need that rhythm in this Liverpool team, and if they don't have it, it's going to take a while before they can get into it. Now, again, it just depends on the squad role and what he wants to do, obviously, for next season. But I think it's quite interesting to know what you guys think, obviously, in the comment section, what Liverpool fans think around the world, really. Where do you see Bajcetic next season in terms of his role within the squad? Is he going to be that sub that we bring on when we need to maybe change things up in the game, when we want to play a bit of football? I think that's quite key anyway for next season, is that Liverpool are going to have to start learning to play a bit of football. It can't just be the kick it and run and counter attacking and trying to do this fast transitional play. That will work, obviously. That will work probably more times than it won't, but is that going to be enough to get you to be challenging and stuff like that? I don't personally believe it would be, and I think that we do need to start changing the way that we play. So, hopefully we kind of see that, moving into next season. But again, Bajcetic, for me personally, in my opinion, I would say, if I don't look at it from a player's perspective, I'd probably say, you know what, I think you would be a good bench player to have. Europa League games, as I said, cup games, stuff like that. That's where I'm definitely playing you in those kind of competitions, and then we kind of see how it goes from there. But that is all dependent on who we sign also in the summer, who we let go in the summer as well. Because for all we know, your role could enhance if we sell certain players. Like as an example, you sell Fabinho, Bajcetic is going to be the next one up, in my personal opinion. Kind of thing in terms of whether that's a backup option or whether you go out and actually sign someone. He's the next one I'm looking at and thinking, okay, well, but Bajcetic can clearly do that kind of role. So let's throw him in. Let's see how he does. I'm not saying that you hang your hopes on an 18-year-old. Of course not. But with what we've got, we can only work with what we've got. That's how I kind of see it. But we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. But guys, let me know, what do you think in the comment section? What is the role of Bajcetic for next season? How do you see things panning out for him? And also, what is his future role at the football club in terms of what do you think his best position will be? Where do you think we're going to see the best of a Stefan Bajcetic? Let me know, obviously, what you guys think in the comment section. That is the end of the video. Nice and quick for you guys. Just a little talk, obviously, about Bajcetic. Let me know what you guys think. I'm G. That is stream done, and I am out.